Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Conroy. I'm the Executive Director at Capital Lakes, and it is an honor for me today to introduce the Reverend Guta Svetkovich, chaplain at Capital Lakes, better known to all of you as Guta. 7 years ago, Guta, with the help of Jean Silverberg and Sally Davis, began the first Interfaith Breakfast at Capital Lakes. This is the 7th annual breakfast, and I want to acknowledge Guta's leadership in continuing this nurturing, community-oriented, spirit-inspired event infused by the diverse religious, intellectual, and ethical lives of our Capital Lakes community.
Well, thank you, Tim. Thank you all for joining us on Zoom or watching on channel 900. It looks like we got a nice crowd this morning. Thank you all. The theme of our gathering this morning is food for thought. 3 Capital Lakes residents will share their thoughts on issues of racial justice by Maurice Waxler, Homelessness by Norma Matson, and Food and Hunger, written by Jean Silverberg and presented by Sally Davis. Let me outline our event today. Our program today is different, and we'll start with paying tribute to Jean Silverberg, who died last week. Sally Davis, co-chair and co-founder of this event, will recognize and honor our beloved Jean Silverberg. Following tribute in memory of Jean Silverberg, you will see 3 video presentations of 3 topics. Next, Harriet Buchhalter will offer orientation to discussions in the Zoom breakout rooms with facilitators. Then you will all be virtually removed from our gathering to those breakout rooms that will last about 20 minutes. And then facilitators who choose to participate will share with us brief reports. And after that, we'll be closing our event. And now, Sally Davis will pay well-deserved tribute to our beloved Jean Silverberg.
And I just want people to know that these are closed caption videos, and the spelling of names are often wrong, including Jean's, because it is an automated system. So just understand that.
This morning, I have a difficult assignment. I've been asked by the Interfaith Breakfast Planning Committee to pay tribute to someone I have valued as a dear friend and with whom I worked on events that would celebrate our interfaith resident community. That special person was Jean Silverberg, who died on March 10. Today, I want to recognize Jean's role in the Interfaith Breakfast that is now a tradition beginning its 7th year. First, some background. Little did I know when we moved to Capital Lakes that a diminutive person named Jean Silverberg would become a new friend, a friend that enriched my life as she did the lives of so many other residents. Through our friendship and our faith traditions, we became aware of our vibrant faith community at Capital Lakes and the contributions to that community by our chaplain, Guta Chetovic. A result of that awareness was for Jean and me to co-chair the first Interfaith Breakfast. We agreed that such an event would recognize our chaplain's outreach to residents of all faiths. The first year's breakfast established a tradition of having breakfast in the Grand Hall, a speaker from a faith community, and discussions by residents at their breakfast tables. This year, because of the pandemic, we are listening to the program on Zoom and channel 900, and we'll have discussions in Zoom rooms. The 3 discussion topics are homelessness, racial justice, and hunger. Jean volunteered to write a paper on hunger and to work with Amy on a breakfast box. I am honored that I was asked by the committee and by Joe Silverberg to read Jean's paper, which I will do later this morning.
I didn't do it.
A dear friend has left a lasting legacy for our faith community. All of us who knew Jean will miss her smile and her person. But Jean was also special in small, caring ways. Just a few days ago, I learned about one of those ways. Were you surprised to see chocolate kisses in your breakfast box this morning? Do you know why? I was told that Jean asked Amy to include kisses in each box because during the pandemic, we wouldn't be able to give each other a hug. I think only Jean would have come up with that idea. It is yet another memory of her thoughtfulness and caring that I will always cherish.
Thank you, Sally.
Racial justice, policies that lead to equity between light and dark people, race genders, race sexualities, integrated and protected racialized spaces, and opposes racial capitalism. Love is critical to rid America of racism. Jim Crow is disguised with clever clothes, costumes of patriotism and religiosity, cover stained undies, disrobe injustices, reveal systemic zipping African, Native, Hispanic, and other subordinated Americans into zones of inferior housing, education, and employment, criminalizing resultant family poverty, trauma, and distress, unearth policing practices that preserve dominant status rather than serve and protect subordinated communities, unmask how dominant Americans block Blacks and others into subordinated socioeconomic status to enhance their own wealth and power, restricting access to basic needs, limiting human growth, economic, educational, psychological, and spiritual. Uncover how dominant Americans bar subordinated citizens from full political participation, gerrymandering, voter suppression. Love with discernment is needed. What to do, when, and how to eliminate inequities. Suggestions. Provide communities of support to prevent the pipeline to prison. Help teens when they make mistakes. Stop cycling people through prisons with little hope of a loving family life. Provide training, education, treatment, housing, and jobs with a living wage. Develop compassionate capitalism using reparations, national service, guaranteed annual income, tax reform, and other means to reduce greed and destructive disparities in wealth. Help identify inequities, inspire service, solutions.
This is a white paper that I wrote on homelessness in Madison. What do you think the average age is of a homeless person in Madison, Wisconsin? I can't remember how
9 years old.
I was first asked that question, but I will never forget the answer. 9 years old. We were gathered as a church committee to become one of 12 other congregations who were already part of the Interfaith Hospitality Network, where volunteers work with IHN staff. We took turns a week at a time to provide shelter, bedrooms, a home-cooked meal every night, and volunteers to play with children or help with their homework so their tired parents could do laundry and find clothes to wear the next day for school or daycare while the parent was looking for a job, or if already working, as often happened, a place where the family could afford to live. This long, cold winter has given me lots of time to remember those years of volunteering to become part of our church commitment to help homeless families and all I learned from them. I saw how hard it is to be a homeless parent or child in Madison. I saw and respected how hard it is for the parent who had to juggle public transportation schedules for themselves and for their children. Then there was the heartache when the children would ask, "When can we go home?" I'm too old now to keep volunteering with IHN. It's now known as the Road Home. However, we do keep in touch with that organization's newsletters and attending the annual Road Home November breakfast to celebrate with parents who can tell us that they are now able to maintain their own apartment and because they got the needed education to get better paying jobs and to have a better future for themselves and their children. When we moved to Capitol Lakes, I was happy to discover that we have residents who collect donations every other month for the Road Home families. When COVID restrictions are lifted, I will be watching for the time when the Road Home collections can resume and continue to help make Madison a compassionate community where families can transition from being homeless and hopeless to becoming families in homes where hopefulness enables them to flourish as a family.
Food for thought. Something that warrants consideration to think about is one of many dictionary definitions. The other day, I remembered a phrase from my childhood. Then I thought it meant if I ate my spinach, I would be smart. Not true at all. But I did suggest to our committee that food for thought may work as the theme for this year's Interfaith Breakfast. Little did I realize that that was the beginning of an incident that would have an impact on my life. The lighting of the proverbial bulb in the darkness. The committee asked me to share that moment with you, and I am doing the liberty of doing just that. I feel, as many of you do, that 2020 was the most horrible year of my life. But 2021, by listening and working together, could come back for our kids and grandkids better than ever, hopefully in our lifetime. I did prefer to look at 2020 at the many initiatives that had come out in the technical world of communication. This included Zoom meetings, face-to-face communication, and our Capitol Lakes Channel 900, which kept us going with music and films and programs about our religious origins. All this became the normal world for us. But I missed something much more. And after I made my suggestions for food for thought, this is what happened. I had just turned on to one of our television stations, and I heard a reporter interviewing a well-known senator who was obviously disturbed. He was wearing his mask, but I could see his eyes. He had left his hometown in Burlington to get to Washington to push the stimulus package that was so past due. He kept on saying, "We promised it. We promised it." He went on to say that on his way to the airport, he had gone by lines and lines of cars seeking food at the end of the line. He tried to say, "Not in my United States, not in mine." And he choked up and could not utter another word. The tears came in his eyes, and tears came in my eyes. And I remembered seeing a scene like that, lines of cars waiting for food. And I had utter to myself, not in America. And I too had cried. It was after this that I felt that fate brought me to this moment of understanding. Yes, it was food that was at the head of the line, but someone was caring. Someone was caring. Someone was showing compassion. And I knew that the heart and soul together could and can direct our actions to produce our thoughts behind the deeds. What word would you substitute for the word food? What does your heart do when you think of giving to others, your donations, your volunteering? We all want a world of goodwill for our kids and their kids. Today is when we can take actions so that the world will be there for our families and for all those outside our sphere who may need our help.
That you are all with us tells me that you're feeling pretty capable about being on Zoom. But if you've never had a chance to break into rooms on Zoom, here are a few suggestions to help you. We'll divide into discussion rooms to talk about each of the 3 food for thought topics. This process will happen quickly. You don't have any responsibility to make it happen. The meeting host will do that. A message will appear on your screen saying you have been invited to a Zoom room, and you can click a button to agree. When you're in the room, you will see a few other people and a facilitator who will start the discussion with a question and help to keep things moving along on schedule. When the time for the room discussions is over, you will see a message on the screen and that the room will close soon. There will be time to wind things up, and then you click the button, leave, and find yourself back with the whole group. Voila.
Well, thank you, Tim, for facilitating this Zoom discussion rooms.
Guda, you only have 9 people in here. You have to wait till the 2 minutes is
Okay.
up.
Okay, you let me know then.
Yep.
I've got another question. Over near my house, I live over on the northeast side, and by the transfer station that's by Oscar Myers, one of the bars is no longer a bar. They built some single person little Quonset huts for the homeless. Does anybody know who built that?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. But I can ask that question in report.
I think they have been, this is Jenny Cruz. I can't see anything but that sign. Can we get rid of that sign? Anyway, I think those are tiny houses, and that's a new settlement of tiny houses. They were written about in the State Journal within the past several weeks. You could just Google tiny houses, Madison, and get that information. But it's a very successful program.
Guda, you have everyone back.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everyone. I wish we had a chance to process this Zoom room, but our time is limited. So I would like to start with our room number 1, I think, report. We started actually reversed order. So we asked with the question, have you ever been hungry? And we said that experience of hunger was in many different ways through our life experience, shown not necessarily just for food, but for any other human needs. Question 1 and 2 related to injustice. The places that our group was noticing that is judicial justice, media, education system, and it was an interesting question on social welfare. And Joe Silverberg described that as a necessary, he called it evil, because it's necessary because of the conditions that the citizens live in, and it's evil because we wish that it doesn't exist. And just briefly, actions that can be done that are regarding injustice. It's changing the system, but also changing our hearts. That was one of our member, Elham, who spoke about that. And question 4 and 5, how you are aware about homelessness issue. Pete and Rudy referred to just walk down up the street toward Walgreens and you will be aware of that. And the last question, any other organizations that are in Madison working on those issues? Joe mentioned JSS, Jewish Social Services, and their effort to about resettling new citizens in America who are not Jewish, but are supported by Jewish Social Services. And also Jack mentioned Porchlight that started at the Grace Episcopal Church. Well, that's a report from room number 1. I don't know, Tim, who is in room 2 or whoever room.
I'm not sure I remember either. Maybe we could do Harriet's group could report now.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
We were room 4, but
That's
we're happy
okay.
to report. Well, we had a pretty open discussion and basically came up with some ideas about important racial injustice having to do with where people can live and how there are restrictions, and that has led to so much of the separation of races, and then it becomes difficult to get along together, and to making sure that there aren't any covenants or anything restricting property ownership and that sort of thing. I think we talked rather briefly about homelessness and talked about having the people, the work for the road home, that has made a great contribution to homelessness and continuing to be able to support that. Millie was with us, and she has been one of the prime supporters here at Capitol Lakes for the road home and shared quite a bit with us. And then we did have a rather brief discussion of hunger and how difficult the pandemic has been in trying to work on the problems of hunger, that it has just made it quite impossible to reach out to people with food, and very difficult. So it's exacerbated the problem this year.
Well, thank you, Harriet. Ingrid, would you like to report from your group?
Sure, although we were group 6, so I'm happy to go third.
Okay.
Like what you and Harriet have already reported, we spent a fair amount of time talking about racial justice and how one might break it down, and the difficulties, how one might break down racial injustice and the difficulties of doing that. And so there were a number of suggestions for educating ourselves, including reading books like that Kai mentioned, and I'm not sure I'm going to get all the titles right, but The Sum of Us, How to Be an Anti-Racist Cast. And that then we got into a discussion of, so once we are more educated about this, what can we do to influence other people? And that seemed to be, we agreed that that was very difficult to do. So one suggestion was that we continue to support the foundations for the foundation's efforts to help people of color, either who are our own employees or elsewhere in the community. We moved on briefly to homelessness, which Paul and Dolores did observe that all you need to do to learn about it is to walk up to the square. I want to mention just another organization that is assisting homeless people is Friends of State Street, in addition to other ones. And we spent very little time speaking about hunger, although it did occur to me afterwards that perhaps either the foundation or the residents might want to think about more ways to contribute to Second Harvest or other food pantries to assist people here locally. Thank you.
Thank you, Ingrid. Morris, are you willing to share your group discussion?
Yes, we had a dynamic discussion. It covered many of the issues that have been mentioned already. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so mostly we focused on trying to identify some of the key racial injustices, having to do, mostly identified were lack of connection to fellow citizens who don't look like us, and what we can do about that. And the other was a sense of privilege that many of us have, those of us who are considered white, that many folks don't realize the little ways in which they exert that privilege because they're within that. The other aspects we focused on were some folks have not lived in continuity or in situations where they experienced or saw much overt racism in the form of frank discrimination, with the exception of some early accounts of bus requirements for moving to the back of the bus. We came up with relatively few solutions, except for people to find ways to connect with people that don't look like us, that don't live like us, and to explore how we can do more of that. It takes some intentionality, some planning to do that, since we do not live contiguously. We live different kinds of lives, and we're old. Speaking for myself, so that puts another constraint on what we do. So it was an excellent discussion. One of the organizations that was mentioned was, which is now called Just Dane, which was known previously as Madison Urban Ministry, and their variety of programs, their programs for reentry of people that are incarcerated, plus there are other programs that they have. They're a mainstay around here. So I'll pass on to the next moderator.
Thank you. Well, I'll call Norma Matson.
Hi, our group started at the top with Morris's paper on racial injustice, and we didn't get much farther than that. really there was so much response of feelings of unhappiness with the way it is, but it was expressed in different ways by somebody who has lived and worked in other places before retiring here to Madison, is shocked by how segregated we are here, and in the city too. She is not aware of as much integration as she experienced in other college towns. A couple of people had mentioned the importance of seeing ourselves all as one family, and that faith does play a part in that. One of our visitors from the Baha'i discussion group said that this was what attracted her to the faith, that we had, until we see ourselves as one human family, a lot of these prejudices won't go away. Another participant has been taking a course offered by Nehemiah called Justified Anger. And those folks, before we enter into dialogue and conversation across racial lines, they feel that what we as white people need is to know the history of what we don't know. And I'm also enrolled in that course, and it's true. After 8 lectures, some by people that are at the university in the African American Studies department, and I'm just horrified by I'm vaguely aware of the history, and I've taken a lot of history over the years, and all through high school and college, and to hear from a African American point of view of how the desire to live with civil rights and to be accepted in a civil society, how often they've had the door closed. And one of the we didn't get too much further than that. One of the actions that could be taken is just anytime we do have opportunity to even pass, to look a person in the eye, or to value knowing someone who's different from us. The other thing that is happening currently here in Wisconsin and other state legislatures is the effort to pass bills that make it more difficult for people to vote. And it's just outright racism, the way I say, as they're going about it. And that is someplace where we could put some pressure on politicians who are running for re-election to have primary challenges to them. And they feel pretty secure because they think they know their base, and to know that there are people that don't, in the majority community, who don't agree with that point of view. So we didn't get any farther than that, but that was enough. There's enough there for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma. Sally, Sally Davis, willing to share with us?
Muting. Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes,
Good.
very well.
Our group was a wonderful group of people with lots of experience and lots of outreach that they have done in their own lives and awareness of programs. But we did get through all 3 questions. However, much of what was said earlier seems to be absolutely true for our group too. But I did want to say that this lack of awareness on our parts to need to learn and be with and understand other races and cultures came up as it did in your other groups. We talked about racial injustice in terms of awareness, how little we are aware of what the situation is and what goes on, and that we need to become acquainted with not only persons, but programs. But I liked the idea of noting that public television has done in the month and these weeks an excellent job of bringing background of particularly the Black culture to us in a way in which I don't remember hearing and seeing, and I was very impressed with that program. And then we talked about cash bail, and I did not know that unless you paid cash, you went to jail. So I think there's a bill in the legislature again about that, but that's something to follow. In terms of the homeless in Madison, Marion told us about a program that she was working with in the South Madison area. She was on the board. Others talked about school tutoring, and we learned about the Odyssey program, which exists at the university to help people for whatever reason who dropped out of school and can come back, and includes formerly incarcerated people. And then have we experienced hunger? Well, I guess like all of you, the answer was we did not recall that. However, we need to know that there are programs, and Jane helped us be reminded of community gardens and the US government food program. And I had forgotten that it supplies food lunch to children all over the country. And Jane suggested that this could certainly be a year-round program. So I think we had good discussion, and I look forward to following up on many of the suggestions that people made.
Thank you, Sally. And Jay, let me. Oh,
yes, our group started with a discussion of the recent blatantly racist comments by our Senator Ron Johnson, and bemoaned the fact that there was no one in the Republican political leadership that spoke out and condemned it as blatantly racist, which it was. We discussed the bills that have come out of the House of Representatives to try and counter the attempt by state legislatures to put into play 250 or more bills specifically designed for voter suppression. And we talked about the various ways in which the Senate could conceivably get to a vote on passing those bills from the House, which will be very difficult and probably require that there be a special carve out for election legislation, just as there was a special carve out for Supreme Court appointments that was done just a few years ago, in the sense that it would not require a filibuster, but a simple majority. And that is perhaps a mechanism by which those measures that would counter the horrific accumulation of voter suppression laws could be compensated for. Mm-hmm. And then we also discussed the lunacy of the electoral college system and the mechanism by which that could conceivably be ended, not by a constitutional amendment, but by the number of states that would agree to send all of their electoral college votes to whoever won the popular vote. And when the number of states with electoral votes totaling 270 agree to this, that will be the end of the electoral college, and that will be good riddance.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Well, anything else, Jay? Thank you. Thank you so much. Friends, this will be also opportunity. If you have questions or suggestions, please email any of the group leaders to me, or we just would like this conversation to stay alive. And there is a way to, we can continue conversation on those topics and come up together as community. This is also time for our closing of the program, and I thank you kindly for joining us for this virtual event. It's been unique and visually our last Zoom Interfaith Breakfast. Thank you to all participants. Thank you to our committee who took the great task of learning to use Zoom breakout rooms and work steadily in spite of great loss and grief. Thank you, Amy Shimanek and her dining team for sharing with us delicious breakfast. Thank you, Tim Conroy, for sharing your uber mastery of Zoom and dedicated your precious time to our effort to make this event possible. Just on a personal note, I feel that Jean Silverberg physical presence was missed, yet I feel that spirit of Jean Silverberg was, however, alive and present with us. And dear friends, before I close with a blessing, I say, see you next year in person in Grand Hall. So that's all what I wish for. And so friends, just a reminder that our life is short and precious, and we do not have too much time to live this life that is a blessing on us. So be swift to love, and may haste to be kind. And may the blessing of the one who made us, loves us, and journeys with us be upon us and our loved ones forevermore. But thank you so much, and have a wonderful day. There will be a recording of this program, and if you want to just watch personally, let us know, or we'll see if we can broadcast this on our channel. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.